Why the Cessna is failing, the shocking collapse of aviation's most trusted name. They said it couldn't happen. They were wrong. For decades, the name Cessna has been synonymous with reliability, safety, and the American dream of flight. It's the aircraft that taught millions to fly, the plane that carried families across continents, the brand that defined general aviation for nearly a century. But today, something catastrophic is happening in the hangars of Wichita, Kansas, something that should terrify anyone who cares about the future of private aviation. The unthinkable is unfolding before our eyes. Cessna is failing, not slowly, not quietly, but in a spectacular implosion that industry insiders have been whispering about for years, and that the flying public is only now beginning to understand. Production lines are slowing, dealers are struggling, pilots are choosing competitors they would have laughed at a decade ago, and the corporate giant that swallowed this American icon, Textron Aviation, seems more interested in quarterly earnings reports than in the legacy of flight itself. What happened to the company that built the legendary 172 Skyhawk, the most produced aircraft in history? How did the manufacturer of the Citation business jet, once the crown jewel of corporate aviation, lose its way so completely? And most importantly, can anything save this fallen titan, or are we witnessing the end of an era? Buckle up. This is the story they don't want you to hear, the shocking truth about why Cessna is failing and what it means for the future of aviation. The glory days, when Cessna ruled the skies. To understand the magnitude of Cessna's fall, you must first understand the heights from which it tumbled. Founded in 1927 by Clyde Cessna in Wichita, Kansas, Cessna Aircraft Company became the beating heart of American general aviation. While other manufacturers chased military contracts or focused on commercial airliners, Cessna democratized flight. They built planes for everyday pilots, doctors, ranchers, business people, and dreamers who wanted to slip the surly bonds of Earth without needing a fortune or an engineering degree. The Cessna 172 Skyhawk, introduced in 1956, became the Honda Civic of aviation, reliable, affordable, and virtually indestructible. With over 44,000 units produced, it remains the most manufactured airplane in history. Flight schools around the world built their businesses on the 172. Generations of pilots earned their wings in its familiar cockpit. The high-wing configuration, forgiving flight characteristics, and legendary reliability made it the gold standard for training aircraft. But Cessna's dominance extended far beyond training planes. The Cessna 182 Skylane offered more power and speed for cross-country travel. The 206 Stationair became the workhorse of bush pilots and cargo operators. The twin-engine 310 and 340 series dominated the light twin market. And in the business aviation world, the Citation series revolutionized corporate travel, offering jet performance at turboprop prices. By the 1970s, Cessna was producing thousands of aircraft annually. The company employed tens of thousands of workers in Wichita. The distinctive high-wing silhouette was visible at virtually every airport in America. Cessna wasn't just an aircraft manufacturer, it was an institution. As American as apple pie and baseball, the financial performance matched the cultural impact. Cessna's parent company, Cessna Aircraft, was highly profitable through the 1960s and 1970s. The company invested heavily in research and development, continuously improving their product line. Innovation flowed from their engineering departments. The future seemed limitless. Then, the cracks began to appear. The promise that couldn't be kept fast forward to the 21st century. After surviving a dark period in the 1980s, when product liability lawsuits nearly destroyed general aviation manufacturing in America, Cessna re-emerged with new models and renewed ambitions. The company, now owned by Textron since 1992, promised to recapture its former glory with cutting-edge designs and modern technology. The Cessna 162 Skycatcher was announced in 2007 as a revolutionary light sport aircraft that would reignite interest in flying among younger pilots. Priced initially at just $190,500, it promised to be affordable, efficient, and perfect for flight training in the modern era. Marketing materials showed happy young pilots, sleek composite construction, and fuel economy that would make flying accessible again. The Cessna 350 and 400, later renamed TTX after Cessna acquired Columbia Aircraft, represented the company's entry into the high-performance single-engine market. These sleek, composite aircraft promised speeds over 200 knots, glass cockpits with Garmin's latest avionics, and performance that could compete with anything in the class. The TTX was supposed to challenge Cirrus's dominance and prove that Cessna could still innovate. The Citation Mustang, introduced in 2006, was marketed as the entry-level jet that would create an entirely new category of very light jets, VLJs. With a price point around $3 million, cheap for a jet, it promised to bring jet travel to a broader market of owner pilots and small businesses. Textron Aviation predicted massive demand. Production facilities were expanded. The future looked bright. In the diesel engine market, Cessna partnered with Continental Motors to develop the CD155 and CD135 diesel engines for the 172 and 182, promising dramatically improved fuel efficiency and the ability to run on readily available Jet A fuel instead of increasingly expensive avgas. European markets, where diesel engines are popular and avgas harder to find, seemed ready to embrace these innovations. Every single one of these initiatives failed or dramatically underperformed. The promises were broken, the innovations stumbled, the market didn't materialize as predicted, and one by one these programs were scaled back, delayed, or cancelled entirely, leaving dealers frustrated, customers disappointed, and the company's reputation in tatters. The cascade of failures, what went wrong, the Skycatcher disaster, the Cessna 162 Skycatcher should have been a home run. Instead, it became a cautionary tale of how even a legendary manufacturer can spectacularly misjudge the market. First, production was outsourced to China to keep costs down, a decision that immediately alienated many American buyers and created quality control problems. Wing cracks were discovered in several aircraft, leading to expensive fixes and an FAA airworthiness directive. The initial price of $109,500 quickly ballooned to over $149,000, destroying the value proposition. But the biggest problem was strategic. Cessna designed the Skycatcher to meet light sport aircraft (LSA) regulations, which limit maximum weight to 1,320 pounds. This meant the plane could only carry 2 people, minimal fuel, and almost no baggage. Many flight schools, the target market, found it too limiting for practical training. Students would complete their initial training in the Skycatcher, then need to transition to a completely different aircraft like the 172 for more advanced training. Why not just start in the 172? By 2013, after selling only about 275 units compared to projected thousands, Cessna quietly cancelled the program. Millions of dollars in development costs were written off. Dealers who had invested in inventory were left holding depreciating assets. And Cessna's reputation for understanding the training market, once unassailable, was badly damaged. The TTX's short flight, the Cessna TTX, represented the company's attempt to compete in the high-performance single-engine market dominated by Cirrus Aircraft's SR-22. On paper, the TTX was impressive: 235-knot cruise speed, range over 1,000 nautical miles, advanced Garmin G2000 avionics, and beautiful composite construction. But it faced an insurmountable problem: the Cirrus Airframe Parachute System, CAPS. Cirrus had brilliantly marketed the whole airframe parachute as a revolutionary safety feature, and insurance companies loved it. The TTX, lacking such a system, was more expensive to insure. Pilots, especially those new to high-performance aircraft, gravitated toward the perceived safety of the parachute. Cessna's marketing struggled to counter this narrative. The TTX was arguably a better-handling aircraft with superior speed, but perception matters more than reality in aviation sales. Year after year, Cirrus outsold the TTX by massive margins. In 2017, Cirrus delivered 364 SR series aircraft. Cessna delivered fewer than 20 TTX models. The writing was on the wall. In 2018, Textron Aviation announced the cessation, pun intended, of TTX production. Another program cancelled, another market conceded to competitors, another piece of Cessna's future erased. The very light jet miscalculation. The Citation Mustang seemed like a brilliant idea during the economic boom of the mid-2000s. A jet you could fly yourself for $3 million. Thousands of wealthy individuals and small businesses would surely line up, right? Wrong. The Mustang launched just as the 2008 financial crisis decimated the market for luxury goods, including aircraft. But even after the economy recovered, Mustang sales never approached projections. The market for very light jets simply didn't materialize as predicted. Part of the problem was operational. The Mustang's range of just 1,150 nautical miles meant it couldn't make many useful trips without refueling stops. Its small cabin felt cramped compared to slightly larger jets that cost only incrementally more, and the economics never quite worked. The Mustang wasn't cheap enough to compete with high-end turboprops on operating costs, nor did it offer enough capability to justify the jet premium. By 2017, Mustang production had slowed to a trickle. While not officially cancelled, Cessna essentially stopped marketing it aggressively. The very light jet category that was supposed to revolutionize business aviation became a footnote, and Cessna's Mustang became Exhibit A in why you can't simply will a market segment into existence. The diesel engine debacle, Cessna's diesel engine program, might be the most frustrating failure of all because the concept was sound. Diesel engines offer better fuel economy, run on widely available Jet A fuel, and should have been perfect for the European market where avgas is expensive and sometimes hard to find. The Cessna 172 JTA and 182 JTA, powered by Continental CD-155 and CD-135 diesel engines respectively, were announced with great fanfare. European dealers prepared for strong demand, but almost immediately, problems emerged. Engine reliability issues plagued the program. Some operators reported unexpected power loss, engine vibration and maintenance challenges. Continental struggled to resolve these problems. Cessna's relationship with Continental deteriorated. Deliveries slowed. Customers who had ordered diesel-powered aircraft grew frustrated with delays. Meanwhile, competitors like Diamond Aircraft had been successfully operating diesel engines for years, building expertise and customer confidence. Cessna was late to the party and brought an unreliable product. By the late 2010s, the diesel program had quietly faded away. Cessna's website stopped prominently featuring diesel options. The promised revolution in fuel efficiency and operational flexibility never materialized. European customers who might have chosen Cessna bought Diamonds instead. The Textron effect, when big business kills innovation. Behind every one of these failures lies a more fundamental problem: corporate culture. When Textron acquired Cessna in 1992, the aviation community hoped the financial backing of a large, diversified company would help Cessna compete more effectively. Instead, Textron's corporate culture gradually strangled the innovation and customer focus that had made Cessna great. Textron is a conglomerate focused on quarterly earnings reports and shareholder returns. Aviation is just one division among many, competing for capital allocation alongside Bell Helicopters, Cartex Fuel Systems, and various industrial products. When Cessna doesn't meet short-term profit targets, investment gets cut. Long-term product development suffers. Risk-taking gets discouraged. Former Cessna engineers and executives who have spoken publicly describe a frustrating environment where good ideas die in committee, where marketing departments focused on financial models override the judgment of experienced pilots and engineers, where decisions are made in Textron's Providence, Rhode Island headquarters by executives who may have never flown a small airplane. The acquisition of Beechcraft in 2014, creating Textron Aviation, made things worse. Now Cessna was being asked to share resources, facilities, and development budgets with a former competitor. Product lines overlapped. Internal politics intensified. The distinct culture and identity that made Cessna special was diluted. Compare this to Cessna's competitors. Cirrus Aircraft, while now owned by a Chinese parent company, CAIG, operates with remarkable independence and maintains a clear, focused product strategy. Piper Aircraft, under new ownership, has streamlined its product line and focused on profitable niches. These companies make decisions quickly, respond to market feedback, and maintain close relationships with their dealer networks. Cessna, or rather Textron Aviation, moves with the speed and agility of an oil tanker trying to execute a U-turn. By the time decisions are made and products reach the market, customer needs have often evolved. The competition has moved on. Opportunities are lost. The certification nightmare. It's not all Textron's fault. The regulatory environment for aircraft certification has become so complex and expensive that it discourages innovation across the entire industry. But Cessna's problems with certification have been particularly acute. The Federal Aviation Administration's FAA Part 23 regulations govern the certification of small aircraft. Over decades, these regulations grew increasingly prescriptive and complex. What once took months and modest investment now takes years and tens of millions of dollars. Every new system, every modification, every piece of avionics requires extensive testing, documentation, and FAA approval. For established aircraft like the 172 and 182, this means even minor improvements become prohibitively expensive. Want to install a new engine with better fuel economy? That requires extensive flight testing and certification. Want to update to the latest avionics? More testing, more documentation, more cost. Want to strengthen the landing gear or improve the interior? Same story. The result is stagnation. The basic design of the Cessna 172 has been largely unchanged since the 1950s because changing it is too expensive. Yes, avionics have improved, engines are slightly more efficient, but fundamentally, a 2024 Cessna 172 is extremely similar to a 1970s model because certification costs make meaningful innovation financially impossible. Meanwhile, the regulatory environment creates opportunities for newer companies operating under experimental or light sport aircraft rules, which have less stringent, though still rigorous, certification requirements. These companies can innovate faster and cheaper. Cessna, stuck in the certified aircraft world, can't keep pace. The FAA has attempted to reform Part 23 with new, less prescriptive regulations that went into effect in 2017. But the transition has been slow and uncertain. Cessna has been cautious about being an early adopter, fearing that being a pioneer means taking arrows in the back. This cautious approach, while understandable, means continued stagnation in their product line. Priced out of the market. Here's a shocking statistic. A new Cessna 172 Skyhawk costs approximately $400,000 to $450,000 depending on options. Read that again. Nearly $500,000 for a 4-seat single-engine trainer that cruises at 122 knots. For context, the median home price in the United States is around $420,000. A well-equipped 172 costs more than a house in many parts of the country. The typical buyer is spending as much on a 50-year-old airframe design as they would on a luxury sports car or a substantial piece of real estate. This pricing has destroyed the entry-level market. The aspiring pilot who dreams of owning their own plane faces an impossible barrier. Even successful professionals, doctors, lawyers, small business owners think twice before spending $500,000 on a 4-seat piston airplane that burns 10 gallons of expensive avgas per hour. Flight schools, traditionally the backbone of 172 sales, are increasingly reluctant to buy new. A 1970s or 1980s Cessna 172 can be purchased for $50,000 to $150,000. Yes, it's older. Yes, it requires more maintenance. But for a flight school operating on thin margins, the math is compelling. Why buy one new 172 for $450,000 when you can buy 3 used ones for the same money? Cessna argues correctly that the pricing reflects reality. Certification costs are enormous. Labor costs have risen. Liability insurance is expensive. Modern avionics are sophisticated and costly. Materials and manufacturing have gotten more expensive. They're not wrong, but the result is the same. Cessna has priced itself out of the market that once made it great. The competition isn't much better on pricing, but at least they offer more differentiation. A Cirrus SR-22, while more expensive at around $750,000, offers significantly better performance, modern composite construction, and that famous parachute. Diamond Aircraft offer diesel engines and excellent efficiency. Even Piper's offerings provide slightly different value propositions. Cessna's products, meanwhile, feel dated and overpriced. A 2024 Cessna 172 offers little that couldn't be found in a well-maintained 1980s model with updated avionics. Why would anyone pay new prices for old technology? The competition strikes back. While Cessna has stumbled, its competitors have been executing brilliantly. Cirrus Aircraft has completely dominated the high-performance single-engine market. The SR-22, introduced in the early 2000s, quickly became the best-selling aircraft in its class. Cirrus's marketing has been exceptional, emphasizing safety, technology, and lifestyle. The CAPS parachute provides a compelling safety narrative. The sleek, composite airframe looks modern. The Cirrus Perspective avionics, based on Garmin systems, are intuitive and powerful. But Cirrus didn't stop there. They introduced the SR-20 as a slightly more affordable option. They developed the Vision Jet, a single-engine personal jet that has found a solid niche market. They invested heavily in training programs to help pilots transition safely into their aircraft. They maintained close relationships with dealers and customers. They executed on product development while Cessna dithered. Diamond Aircraft carved out a strong position with their DA-40 and DA-62 models, emphasizing efficiency, modern design, and, critically, reliable diesel engines. While Cessna struggled with diesel development, Diamond made it work. European pilots in particular have embraced Diamond's diesel-powered aircraft. The DA-62, a twin-engine diesel aircraft, has no real competitor from Cessna. Piper Aircraft, once struggling itself, has found new life under different ownership. The Piper Archer and Warrior remain competitive training aircraft, often priced slightly below comparable Cessnas. The Piper Arrow provides complex training capabilities. The M350 and M500 offer excellent capability in the single-engine turboprop market. And the Seminole dominates multi-engine training. Piper hasn't tried to do everything. They've focused on profitable niches and executed well. Even Beechcraft products, now part of Textron Aviation alongside Cessna, sometimes cannibalize Cessna sales. The Beechcraft Bonanza remains the gold standard for high-performance single-engine aircraft, beloved by pilots for its handling and speed. Some industry observers wonder if Textron's ownership of both brands has led to internal competition that hurts both. In the business jet market, competitors like Embraer, Bombardier and Gulfstream have steadily eroded Cessna's Citation dominance. While Citation still sells well in certain categories, it's no longer the automatic choice it once was. Competitors offer better range, more advanced technology, and often superior cabins. The pattern is clear. Cessna's competitors have been more innovative, more focused, and more responsive to market needs. They've made tough choices about where to compete and where to concede. They've invested in product development and customer relationships. They've built brands that resonate with modern pilots. Cessna, by contrast, has tried to be everything to everyone while excelling at nothing in particular. The dealer dilemma: walk into a Cessna dealer today, if you can find one, and you'll often find a frustrated business person. Dealers have historically been the lifeblood of aircraft sales, providing local presence, customer service, maintenance, and advocacy. But Textron Aviation's relationship with its dealer network has deteriorated significantly. Dealers complain about poor communication from the factory. Product delays are common, with delivery dates slipping repeatedly. When problems arise with new aircraft, getting support from Textron Aviation can be challenging. Marketing support is minimal. Dealers are expected to invest in facilities, staff, and inventory, while the factory seems indifferent to their success. The compensation structure has also caused friction. Margins on new aircraft sales are thin. Dealers make more money on maintenance, parts, and used aircraft sales than on new Cessnas. This creates a perverse incentive. Dealers may actually prefer to sell used Cessnas or competitive aircraft rather than push new Textron products. Compare this to Cirrus, which has invested heavily in its dealer network, providing extensive training, marketing support, and reasonable compensation. Cirrus dealers are enthusiastic advocates for the brand. They host events, offer professional demo flights, and actively engage with the pilot community. The contrast with Cessna dealers, many of whom seem to be going through the motions, is stark. Some markets have seen dealers drop their Cessna franchises entirely, focusing instead on Cirrus, Piper, or maintenance work. In a few cases, long-time Cessna dealers have publicly criticized Textron Aviation's policies and support. This dealer dissatisfaction directly impacts sales, as unmotivated dealers don't actively pursue customers or promote products. The manufacturing muddled Textron Aviation's manufacturing operations in Wichita, Kansas, should be a source of pride and efficiency. Instead, they've become a symbol of the company's struggles. Production rates for single-engine aircraft have declined significantly from the heyday of the 1970s. While some of this reflects overall market contraction, Cessna has lost market share even in a smaller market. Manufacturing facilities built for much higher volumes sit partially empty or underutilized. Quality control issues have occasionally surfaced, damaging the company's reputation for reliability. While Cessna aircraft remain generally safe and well-built, any quality problems are magnified for a brand built on a reputation for dependability. A few high-profile issues, like the Skycatcher wing cracks or problems with particular engine installations, create disproportionate reputational damage. The manufacturing workforce has also aged and contracted. As older workers retire, institutional knowledge is lost. Younger workers are harder to recruit to an industry perceived as declining. The skills required for composite aircraft manufacturing, increasingly important in modern aviation, are different from traditional aluminum construction, requiring workforce retraining that hasn't always been handled well. Textron has periodically announced manufacturing improvements and efficiency initiatives, which often seem to be corporate euphemisms for cost-cutting. While efficiency is important, excessive cost-cutting can harm quality and innovation. The balance between financial efficiency and engineering excellence is delicate, and Textron seems to consistently prioritize the former. A glimmer of hope, the Denali and Sky Courier. It would be unfair to say Cessna has done nothing right. Two recent programs show that when properly resourced and managed, Textron Aviation can still develop competitive aircraft. The Cessna Sky Courier is a twin turboprop utility aircraft designed for cargo and passenger operations. Sized between smaller single-engine turboprops and larger regional aircraft, it fills a genuine market niche. FedEx has ordered a substantial number for cargo operations. The Sky Courier began deliveries in 2022, and early reviews have been positive. The Cessna Denali is a single-engine turboprop designed to compete with the Pilatus PC-12 and TBM series aircraft. With a catalyst engine developed specifically for this aircraft, modern avionics, and impressive performance specifications, the Denali could be competitive if it ever reaches market. However, the program has faced significant delays, with certification repeatedly pushed back. Originally expected in 2020, the Denali still hasn't received FAA approval as of 2024. These programs show that Cessna can still design competitive aircraft. The Sky Courier's successful entry into service proves the company hasn't completely lost its engineering capabilities. But the Denali's delays underscore the ongoing challenges with certification and program management. Both aircraft also target commercial and business markets rather than the owner-pilot market where Cessna's reputation was built. This strategic shift may be necessary. The owner-pilot market has contracted significantly, but it also represents an acknowledgement that Cessna has effectively conceded the personal aviation market to competitors. The elephant in the hangar, general aviation's decline. To be completely fair, Cessna's struggles must be understood in the context of general aviation's overall decline in the United States. The total number of active private pilots has stagnated or declined over recent decades. The number of personal aircraft sold annually is a fraction of what it was in the 1970s. The entire industry has contracted. Multiple factors drive this decline. Cost. Flying is expensive and has become more so, with aircraft, fuel, maintenance, insurance, and hangar costs all rising faster than inflation. Regulation. While necessary for safety, regulations make aviation more complex and expensive for recreational pilots. Alternative transportation, modern road networks, and affordable commercial air travel make personal aircraft less necessary for many trips. Demographics. The pilot population is aging, and younger generations show less interest in flying as a hobby or personal transportation method. Competition for leisure time. People have many more entertainment and recreation options than in previous generations. Against this backdrop, Cessna's struggles are partly reflective of industry-wide challenges that no single company can solve. Even if Cessna executed perfectly, the market for new personal aircraft would still be much smaller than it was 50 years ago. However, and this is critical, Cessna has underperformed even within a declining market. While the overall market has shrunk, Cessna's market share has also fallen. Competitors operating in the same challenging environment have gained ground. This means Cessna's problems go beyond industry trends to company-specific execution failures. The path forward: can Cessna be saved? So where does Cessna go from here? Is the brand doomed to continue its slow decline into irrelevance, or can it recapture some of its former glory? The pessimistic scenario is continued slow deterioration. Textron maintains the Cessna brand as a legacy business, milking existing products for whatever revenue they generate, while investing minimally in new development. Single-engine piston production continues at low levels, serving flight schools and a shrinking pool of buyers willing to pay premium prices for dated designs. The Citation business jetline continues, but faces increasing competition. Eventually, Textron decides the aviation business isn't worth the hassle and either sells it or winds it down entirely. The optimistic scenario requires dramatic change that seems unlikely given Textron's corporate culture. It would require genuine product innovation, not just updates to 50-year-old designs, but fundamentally new aircraft that offer compelling value propositions. Pricing strategy changes, finding ways to reduce costs and offer aircraft at prices that expand rather than contract the market. Dealer network revitalization, rebuilding relationships, providing better support, and creating enthusiastic advocates for the brand. Marketing excellence, learning from Cirrus and others how to build emotional connections with customers and tell compelling brand stories. Corporate culture transformation, breaking free from short-term financial thinking and investing for long-term success. The challenge is that all of these require sustained investment and patience, qualities that large public corporations struggling to meet quarterly earnings targets rarely demonstrate. A middle scenario, perhaps most realistic, is that Cessna continues as a smaller, more focused company. Single-engine piston production continues at low volumes for flight schools and a niche market of traditionalists. The Citation line focuses on segments where it remains competitive. Programs like the Sky Courier succeed in commercial markets. Cessna becomes a shadow of its former self, but survives in diminished form. What this means for aviation: Cessna's struggles matter beyond just one company's fortunes. Cessna was, for generations, the entry point into aviation for countless pilots. The 172 Skyhawk taught millions to fly. Cessna's widespread presence meant parts availability, maintenance support, and institutional knowledge existed everywhere. As Cessna declines, that infrastructure erodes. Fewer dealers mean less local support. Reduced production means higher parts costs for existing aircraft. The pipeline of new pilots learning in Cessnas and developing loyalty to the brand is disrupted. For the flying public, this means fewer choices, potentially higher prices, and less competition driving innovation. For aspiring pilots, it means one fewer accessible path into aircraft ownership. For the aviation industry, it means the loss of an institution that helped define general aviation for nearly a century. The irony is bitter. Cessna helped create the general aviation market in America, making flying accessible to ordinary people with extraordinary dreams. Now, through a combination of corporate mismanagement, regulatory challenges, and market changes, Cessna is failing the very community it helped create. Conclusion: the end of an era? The story of Cessna's decline is not just a business case study, it's a parable for our times. It shows how even the most iconic brands, built on decades of excellence, can lose their way when short-term financial thinking overrides long-term vision. It demonstrates how corporate bureaucracy can strangle innovation and responsiveness. It illustrates how companies can price themselves out of their own markets and forget what made them great in the first place. Cessna is not dead yet. Aircraft still roll off production lines in Wichita. Citations still crisscross the skies carrying business executives. Skyhawks still circle flight training patterns at hundreds of airports. The brand endures, and with it, the hope that revival is possible. But make no mistake, without dramatic changes, we are witnessing the slow-motion collapse of an American aviation icon. The Cessna that defined general aviation, the scrappy, innovative company that democratized flight, is already gone, replaced by a corporate division more concerned with spreadsheets than airplanes. Perhaps another company will rise to fill the void. Perhaps new technologies, electric propulsion, autonomous systems, urban air mobility, will create entirely new categories of personal aviation that make today's debates irrelevant. Perhaps the lesson of Cessna's failure will inspire the next generation of aviation entrepreneurs to do better. Or perhaps we are simply witnessing the end of the era of personal aviation as we knew it, with Cessna as its most prominent casualty. The skies will be quieter without the familiar sound of Cessna engines. The runways will seem emptier without the high-wing silhouette that defined a century of flying, and the dream of accessible personal flight, once so brilliantly realized by a company in Wichita, Kansas, will fade further into memory. That is why Cessna is failing, and that is why it matters. What do you think? Has Cessna lost its way permanently, or can the company recapture its former glory? Have you flown Cessna aircraft, and how do they compare to modern competitors? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this analysis valuable, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the notification bell so you don't miss future deep dives into aviation history, technology, and industry trends. And if you disagree with anything I've said, great. Let's have a conversation in the comments. Aviation thrives on passionate debate among people who care deeply about flying. Until next time, keep your eyes on the horizon and your airspeed above stall speed. Blue skies.